let's create custom parameters to drive our fetlock and hoof rotations. We'll add our custom parameters to our leg controls. So as we move over to our modify panel, we want to make sure that we clean up the display here so we can just view those custom parameters instead of all of our editable spline properties. Alright, so with the leg control selected, we'll start on the left side. Let's go ahead and Alt-right click and grab the attribute holder. Of course, you can also access it from your modifier list if you hadn't added it to your Animate Quad menu. I'll now go ahead and rename the holder to Extra Controls. Alright, great. Next, we'll start creating our custom parameters. So let's go ahead and use the hotkey Alt-1. Now what I'd like to do is create a description before each animatable parameter, just so it's clear as to what each will do. And it kind of organizes things a little bit more. So let's go ahead and start with a string parameter type. And we're starting on the fetlock first, so in the name field, we'll type fetlock. Under the default text field, we can add something along the lines of secondary control. So now it's very clear as to what will follow. I'll go ahead and choose add. And now we can create our animatable parameters. So we'll make those of a float type. And the first one will be for our fetlock roll. So we'll be rolling pastern B. So going back to our animation control, we'll go ahead and name it just that, fetlock underscore roll. And for the range, that will be -360 and +360. That gives the animator a lot of room to work with. They may not take it this far, but the freedom's there. Alright, so we'll go ahead and choose create. Let's go ahead and make one more for the fetlock, and that will be for the tilt axis. So going back to the animation control again, we'll name this fetlock underscore tilt. The range is already set, so we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and choose add. And now we'll create a set of parameters for our hoof roll or hoof rotations. Alright, so I'll go ahead and set the parameter type back to string, and the name will be hoof. And again, for the default text, that will be secondary control. Okay, great. So following that, we will go ahead and use a float parameter type. The first will be hoof roll. The range, again, set to -360 and +360. The next will be for our hoof tilt. And the last will be our hoof swivel. So we'll use this to twist our hoof helper. Okay, great. So we should be good to go now. And now it's just a matter of wiring everything together to finish up. Alright, so what we'd want to do is first figure out the axes we need to wire. So we know by taking a look at our gimbal coordinate system for our rotate tool that the z-axis is the roll axis for the fetlock and the tilt axis is the y-axis. Alright, so let's go ahead and set that up. We'll grab our animation control, and now we could use a hotkey Control 5. That's going to be modified object, extra controls, custom attributes, fetlock roll, and that gets plugged into our helpers zero Euler z-axis. So let's go ahead and make sure that we link correctly using the correct arrow. And now we'll go ahead and add the deg to rad function in order for us to get smoother control over the channel. If you'd like to learn more about this, feel free to take a look at Rigging Wings in 3ds Max, but I'll go ahead and choose Update. And now we can go ahead and work on the fetlock tilt. So I'll go ahead and grab that, and that will be connected to the y-axis of our helper. So we'll go ahead and again use the bottom arrow, and we'll add deg to rad. Okay, let's go ahead and test this out. So we start to move the roll channel. There we go, nice and smooth. And as we start to move the tilt, that's exactly what we want. All right, so we just need to finish up by working on the hoof roll. And the right side is going to be done the same way. All right, so let's go ahead and get this taken care of. We first need to figure out the axes to tie in. So in this case, with our hoof, we can see that the x-axis is actually our roll axis. The y-axis is the tilt. And the swivel axis is the z-axis. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep all of that in mind. I'll go ahead and set this back to 0 using transform to 0. Grab the animation control and we'll get right to work. So again, we'll use the hotkey Control 5. It's going to be modified object extra controls. We'll grab the hoof roll and wire that into our helper's 0 rotation x-axis. So we're using the bottom arrow again, and again we'll add deg to rad, degrees to radians. Okay, great. So there's one. We knew that for our hoof tilt, well, that's the y-axis. So let's go ahead and plug that in, and we'll have one more to worry about, the hoof swivel, which gets wired into the z-axis. Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and add the function, and we can test this out. So as we start to move our roll, there we go. As we start to move the tilt, beautiful, and the swivel. All right, so again, same steps are used for the right side. I would like to point out just one thing, and that is with the hoof roll, you can see that we do have the ability to roll the hoof down. Although if there's a ground plane there, you may not need to rotate in that direction. But you do have freedom there just in case, because you never know. Now, if you would like to remove that, it's just a matter of first figuring out the direction you're moving in. So to rotate the hoof down, well, that's moving us in the positive direction. All right, so with that said, you can then, again, use Alt-1 to move over to your parameter editor, and then choose Edit Delete. We can grab our hoof roll, and then at this point you can set the positive value here to 0 so that you no longer are able to rotate the hoof down. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that open just to, again, have more freedom on that parameter. All right, so I'll go ahead and cancel this out, but you know how to edit those after they have been created if you need to. So that's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we will finish our pelvic limb rig by hooking up our knee and pelvis controls.